Welcome to Blueprint for Health and Healing, where we are reversing disease from its foundation. Hi, I'm Dr. John Clark, and today's topic is the blessing of heart-healthy cholesterol. Now you might be thinking, I thought I was supposed to get rid of cholesterol, make it low, it's always too high. Well, you'll learn what we mean by this as we go along. I want to start by telling you a story about a gentleman that came to me. He's one of those people that, well, he'd like to bait you, why me? Give you a hard question. Why me, he said. I had a cholesterol of 3.6 and I was in the hospital with a heart attack. That would be 140 in American numbers. And so he was in trouble. He was in the hospital and they were offering him a bypass surgery. His doctors had told him they wished they had his low cholesterol numbers. But they didn't, and he did. Yet here he is with a heart attack. He sort of had me, as we say, going there for a little bit, wondering, yeah, you're a mystery case. Why could you have such a low cholesterol and yet have a heart attack? Well, healthy people don't have heart attacks. With natural cholesterol control through good food, pure water, and vigorous exercise, you can enjoy clear thinking, emotional well-being, have a strong immune system, balanced hormones. There's a lot of benefits to good cholesterol. And we'll get into that as we go along, but I used to practice fairly conventionally. If you came to me with a high cholesterol, I'd probably give you a statin drug. But today I do what we call lifestyle medicine. It's a little more involved for the patient because we figure out why the patient has the problem in the first place, usually something they're doing, and then help them to correct that by choosing better lifestyle habits. And the results are very satisfying. Overview, we're going to talk about the benefits of good cholesterol, healthy cholesterol. We're going to talk about when you have too much and when you have too little, and we'll consider some of the connections between your mind and your cholesterol. First though, let's talk about the benefits of healthy cholesterol. Yes, we're always trying to lower it, it seems, because everybody's cholesterol is high, and you'll see why that is as we go along, but there are some good reasons to be looking for healthy cholesterol, and I'll tell you what healthy cholesterol is in a little bit, what I mean by that particular designation. But first of all, you need cholesterol for brain development. You want to pass those tests, graduate with that degree. If you didn't have any cholesterol, your brain would be in trouble because your brain, everybody's brain, is largely cholesterol. It helps with physical and mental energy, helps you feel good. It's there for helping cell walls to stay very resilient, and therefore it's good for making blood. It's there for digestion of fats, and it helps your immune system. Without it, your immune system will suffer. It helps hormones. I didn't know what picture to put in for hormones. I hope you like that one. Anyway, and therefore it's also important for fertility. A lot of people suffer with infertility these days. Okay, what does the perfect cholesterol molecule look like? Well, here's an artist's conception. It's actually a colorization of a scanning electron micrograph of cholesterol. The round circles there, round balls, are chylomicrons such as LDL filled with cholesterol. So what does a good cholesterol molecule look like? Well, let's start off with what it doesn't look like by telling you about my uncle who died at age 39 of a heart attack. Well, that's an early age. What was he doing? He was an anesthesiologist at the University of Texas. He was at the top of his game. He was teaching other anesthesiologists only to lay down his career with a coronary artery blockage. How sad. He left behind my aunt and 2 cousins, wife and 2 teenage sons. Okay, what do you suppose? I'm giving you a lead here. What do you suppose his nightly supper consisted of? When I ask audiences that, some people say, fried chicken, and I say, yep, that would do it, but no, he was vegetarian. Other people name other meats and maybe fried things, but what his nightly supper was that I consider to have contributed largely to his coronary artery event is ice cream. Why ice cream? You know, they say, don't feed it to your dog, it'll kill it, eat it yourself. And here's what happens in laboratory animals. When we feed them these custard mixes, such as ice cream, within 24 hours of eating that custard mix of milk and eggs and cream and sugar and air whipped into it, they get lesions in their blood vessels like those that would lead to plaque and heart attacks in people. That's amazing. Within 24 hours of eating ice cream, I could have, like, as it were, pimples inside my blood vessels. Yeah, according to our laboratory research. And okay, this is mysterious. Why would ice cream be so bad? Well, here's what happens. I've had patients that worked in ice cream factories. They told me all about it. They whip the milk, eggs, and cream all full of air, and then they freeze it suddenly. This traps the oxygen next to the cholesterol. When the oxygen is next to the cholesterol, the oxygen can oxidize the cholesterol, making it into a free radical, making it into something very dangerous for your blood vessels. And then when you eat it, it gets in your bloodstream and goes to those cells lining your blood vessels and creates havoc. Also, pancake mixes. This is where they take and they make the pancake mix in the factory. They powder the eggs. There's cholesterol in the eggs. There's air in the package. When they close it up, the oxygen in that air in that package oxidizes the cholesterol, and pancake mixes have been identified as a source of oxidized cholesterol and causing more heart attacks and coronary artery atherosclerosis in human beings. Cheese. Is it high in fat? Yeah. Is it fresh? No, by definition, it's a fermented, rotted, spoiled, aged product, and so you're going to have high levels of oxidized cholesterol in cheese. And then there's animal fat. Animal fat is a serious thing. So I have to explain this cholesterol thing a bit more because I don't want you to get the idea that all cholesterol is oxidized. Your body makes all the cholesterol you need. It makes it largely in the liver. And when it puts it in the bloodstream, there's no oxidation. It hasn't come in contact with air. But when you chase down an animal, grab a piece of his muscle and use it for your hamburger, it's very hard to keep that bit of muscle from coming in contact with air, especially if you put it on the grill in your backyard and heat it up. And so most of the cholesterol coming from animals, milk, eggs, cheese, cream, whatever, meat, is going to be oxidized, whereas the cholesterol that you make in your own body, that's all that you need, is not going to be oxidized. And you don't want oxidized cholesterol for many reasons, not just your coronary arteries. It causes problems in your lungs, leading to asthma. It comes to your liver, gives you non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, goes to the prostate, can create inflammation and cancer. It goes to your joints and you get to inflammation in the joints, otherwise known as autoimmune inflammatory arthritis, such as rheumatoid arthritis. It can go to your skin. Have you ever heard it said that if you skin the chicken, that it'll lower its cholesterol? And it's true. Not by much, but it'll lower the cholesterol. That's because cholesterol goes to your skin. And if that cholesterol going to your skin is oxidized, as you get older, you get these brown spots, actinic keratosis. I've had people that switched to a diet that would lower cholesterol, a diet that was free from all kinds of easily oxidizable cholesterol and oils, and their brown spots disappeared. Yeah, you can get rid of those things. And so in your skin, when the cholesterol goes to your skin, if it's oxidized, it's going to cause changes in the DNA of the cells in your skin, and that will lead to cancer. Melanoma, basal cell, squamous cell, you know, these bad things that you just don't want. And so keep that in mind. That it goes to the colon and you get colon cancer. It goes to the breast and you get breast cancer. And it goes to the prostate. Starts out by causing hyperplasia, difficulty peeing, and then it can turn to cancer. Goes to the bones. What happens in the bones? Well, the bones start getting resorbed. It causes osteoporosis. So really what I'm telling you here is you do not want oxidized cholesterol. And most of the oxidized cholesterol you'll come in contact with didn't come from your own synthesis. It came from the food you ate that had cholesterol in it. Now, I talked about the gentleman at the beginning of this lecture who had a very low cholesterol, but he had a heart attack. Let's say two people had a high cholesterol, maybe 200 in American numbers. And with that high cholesterol, they would have a high risk of heart attack. Now, if those two people were on very different diets, one on fresh fruits and vegetables and the other eating lots of animal products, guess which one would have the heart attack? You got it, the one eating the oxidized cholesterol. And so if you eat lots of fresh fruits and vegetables, not only will it help lower your cholesterol, but it'll work as free radical scavengers, antioxidants. It'll address the oxidized cholesterol. It'll turn it back into decent cholesterol, and you won't have the risk of having plaque build up in your arteries within 24 hours of eating that bad cholesterol. And so antioxidants are the key. Antioxidants that lower your cholesterol, antioxidants that keep the cholesterol from oxidizing are potatoes, especially with the skins. You know, a lot of the nutrients is in the skins of fresh fruits and vegetables. And so you want to get the skins, and I'm not saying you have to eat your potatoes fresh, but I'm just saying the skin is where the nutrients are. Wild rice, so these have all been studied, black-eyed peas, and carrots, green leafy vegetables, lettuce and red leaf lettuce, beet greens, raw and boiled garlic, apples, onions, because they have good quercetin, which is an antioxidant, grapefruit, pistachio nuts, and seaweed. You might be thinking, wait a minute, did you say grapefruit? They told me when they gave me my cholesterol pill I couldn't have grapefruit. Okay, you choose. Hopefully by the time we get to the end of this lecture, you'll choose the grapefruit over the statin drug. But there's a lot of benefits to grapefruit and helping your blood flow. Perfect health depends on perfect circulation, and grapefruit would be one of those foods that would aid in that process. Now, this is a list. This is the list that has good research on it. I'm not saying that your other favorite fresh fruits and vegetables aren't helpful. Probably they all are, as opposed to things that have no antioxidants, such as, you know, pork and things like that. So let's talk about too much or too little. I mean, I've sort of inferred too little by telling you about all the things that cholesterol is used for. But let's start by thinking about where cholesterol goes in your body. Assuming you're not eating cholesterol and looking at the liver as the place where the cholesterol is coming from, and if you do eat cholesterol, it will go through the liver too and get processed. But assuming that you're just making your own cholesterol in your liver, the thing that the liver does is to process the cholesterol and put it into packages for delivery, and then put it on the delivery truck. You've heard of a UPS truck, a FedEx truck? Yeah, well, DHL truck. Well, here we're going, what's the truck coming out of the liver? We call it LDL, or low-density lipoprotein. It's those pink balls we looked at earlier. And so the truck is really a round ball, but I'm illustrating it with a truck. And so the truck is the delivery truck. And the delivery truck takes the cholesterol to the body for the brain, for the hormones, for all those things we talked about earlier. And then the cholesterol has its time in the body. It's sort of got a shelf life, a expiry date. And when it comes to its expiry date or its shelf life is over with, then you need some recycling trucks, some sanitation engineers, some garbage collectors to come and pick up that old cholesterol and take it back to the liver. Those trucks are called HDL, high density lipoprotein. And so we always talk about the ratio between LDL and HDL. If you have an awful lot of delivery trucks, you better have a lot of trash trucks picking up the refuse. And so the ratio is important. Also, the more oxidized cholesterol you have, the more junk trucks or garbage trucks will be running. And so it isn't always true that high HDL indicates good health. It might indicate that you're doing things that's oxidizing cholesterol. Well, this reminds me, speaking of trash trucks picking up cholesterol, there was a time in New York City when they had a strike of the trash truck drivers, the sanitation engineers. They wanted more money for their work. And so the cameramen were out there on the news taking photos and saying, well, if you just give these guys more money, they'd pick up your trash and it wouldn't be in these dumpsters just all piling up. And sure enough, it was piling up, lots of trash, and people were frustrated. One family figured out what to do. They took their trash, they put it in a big box. Then they taped it up. Then they wrapped it in pretty wrapping paper. When Dad went to work with his car, they put it in the back seat of the car, left the windows down. Every day somebody came along in New York City and thought they'd found the prize of their life and stole the box. Whoa! Imagine the surprise when they got home, something to add to their refuse heap. Well, all to illustrate, if you have lots of delivery trucks running, you need lots of trash trucks running to pick up the excess trash or the oxidized or old cholesterol. And so we like to have a good level of HDL, a good ratio between the two. In most community laboratories, your total cholesterol, which is another number we look at, that's the number we started out with, that's the number that the gentleman who was in the hospital with low cholesterol had a heart attack gave me, is usually figured as a mathematical equation. HDL plus LDL plus 1/3 of triglycerides. That should sort of wake you up to the fact that triglycerides, a high triglycerides, is just as indicative of a high risk for a heart attack as is high cholesterol. I mean, it's one and the same thing. And so you got it. All right, so I already talked about all the things that cholesterol is good for. And so if you're low in cholesterol, too low, you have trouble with brain development, you don't feel good physically or mentally. In fact, people with too low a cholesterol actually, can get depressed. When they get depressed, they actually become more suicidal. Makes you wonder if we're doing the right thing and giving pills that will lower it below what anybody's ever had low cholesterol before. Anyway, let's get back to this. So, cell walls, making good blood, digestion of fats, immune system integrity, hormones, and fertility. So you don't want too little. But you also don't want too much, because the higher your cholesterol goes, the higher your risk of a heart attack. In Canadian numbers, we start at 3.8, and if your cholesterol starts climbing over 3.8, your risk of dying of a heart attack, should you have a heart attack, I mean, you don't have to die of the heart attack, but this is going to be a more deadly heart attack. The risk of dying of the heart attack goes up. In American numbers, that would be over 150. And so the higher you go over 150, the higher the death rate. So we feel very justified in helping people get their cholesterol down. It's just that we don't all agree on the mechanism or the technique we're going to use to get it down. Drugs versus lifestyle. And but you might be thinking, how high should I let my cholesterol go? Well, when it gets over 6.5, or 200, it increases your, or 250, 240 actually, it increases your risk of dying of heart attack by 250%. That's pretty high. I mean, that's a big risk. And, but it's not just your heart. I mean, we focus on the heart because losing your heart's going to kill you, but it'll affect your eyes. Can everybody see my slide okay? Oh yeah, macular degeneration, can't see slides. It's when you can't see right in the middle. And if your cholesterol is going up over 200, then your risk of having macular degeneration goes up by 80%. That would be 6.2 in Canadian numbers. And it makes your blood pressure go up. Your blood gets thick and the oxygen carrying capacity goes down in the blood when you have a high cholesterol, and it takes more effort to pump that blood around. You get high blood pressure. It affects mental performance because it lowers the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. And it increases the risk of Alzheimer's disease. Now let me just mention something here. Whereas eating cholesterol seriously decreases mental performance, taking cholesterol pills, whether your cholesterol is high or not, also decreases mental performance. Do you think you're going to sense the difference? How do you know whether your mental performance is affected by your cholesterol or by the pills? You wouldn't know. And so just be aware of that. Higher risk of Alzheimer's with those pills too. Now, important question. We've said high cholesterol is not good. So why do people get high cholesterol? And here I have a picture. Usually I have a good picture to try to illustrate things, but okay. We're in the kitchen and we're washing dishes. What's with that illustration? It's because the number one reason for your cholesterol, at least the greatest portion of your cholesterol in your body, is used for the digestion of fats. It's like soap. You see, your blood is made out of water. Your blood is made out of a liquid that doesn't mix with oil. If you eat a whole bunch of oil and it went straight in your bloodstream and it couldn't be mixed, then the oil would all go to the top. And what's at the top? Well, your brain. That wouldn't be good. So we have to have some soap so we can mix the oil with the water. And the soap happens to be cholesterol esters, or cholesterol-based soap. And it's in the bile acids. And so here's what happens. The more fats you eat, the more soap it takes, and the more soap it takes, the higher your cholesterol goes. And the harder it is for you to, for the soap to emulsify the fats, the more cholesterol it's going to take. So the lady's washing dishes there. Suppose on that dish was a square of butter. And instead of taking that sponge and knocking it off, she just tried to use warm water and soap to melt it off. How much warm water and soap would it take to remove a whole pat of butter? Well, quite a lot. Quite a lot, actually. And so you can see that butter would definitely require lots of soap. So would any kind of trans fat like margarine. When we start getting to refined fats that come in bottles and are liquid, it takes a little bit less soap, but not much. And so that's why there's some trend toward pushing people to use those instead of the solid fats. Any high-fat diet's going to take a lot of soap to emulsify, to digest, to mix in your body, to keep from having a free-floating fat going to the top of your head. And so you're going to end up with a high cholesterol. Let me illustrate this with a picture of a gentleman with all his internals showing. And let's talk about the enterohepatic circulation. The what? Well, what that is really what I call the soap cycle. Enteral is your intestines, hepatic is your liver, and the circulation goes like this. The food comes down your esophagus. When it comes down your esophagus, your stomach detects it and takes an analysis of it, and it can tell how much fat's in it. If it's high in fat, it sends a signal to the liver. The liver's then has the job of putting soap into the small intestine. When the soap goes into the small intestine, it mixes with those fatty foods you ate, and during its time in the small intestine, going back and forth and getting down to the bottom of it, near the bottom of the small intestine, the fats are absorbed with the cholesterol soap back into the bloodstream, which takes it back up to the liver. Then it drops off at the liver for processing, either to be used for more digestion or other jobs that we've listed for cholesterol. And so it goes round and round, and the more fat you eat, the more cholesterol soap gets in the circulation. The more cholesterol soap in the circulation, the higher your cholesterol goes. It's very predictable. I mean, for each 5% you increase the amount of fat in your diet, your total cholesterol will go up by 0.2 in Canadian numbers. So for every 1% fat increase, it'll go up by about 1.5 points in American numbers. And so fat will raise your cholesterol. Especially saturated fat, animal fat, hydrogenated vegetable oils, coconut oil, anything that's really greasy. It's going to take a lot of soap. Can raise your LDL cholesterol by 60%. Yeah, somebody called me last month. They said, "Oh, Grandma's not doing well." I said, "What's the matter?" They gave me a whole list of things. I said, "What have you done different?" And then they said, "Well, we took her to the doctor and checked her cholesterol, and it was up to 269. I said, "Really? That's not good. How did it get so high?" "Well, we don't know." I said, "What have you done different with her in the last, 6 months since you had your last cholesterol?" "Well, we listened to this person on social media, and they said, yeah, we needed to eat more, have her eat coconut oil for her brain." I said, "Really? And what was her cholesterol before?" "Below 200. "You mean," so, all right. I said, "Cholesterol needs to be low. That's not good for your brain. Coconut oil's going to cause the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood to go down, and so your brain's going to be starved. There's no wonder she's doing poorly. You want to get her off that kind of diet." Butter, 40 grams, like a serving of butter, will raise your cholesterol in Canadian numbers by 0.5 or 20 in American numbers. So what is butter? Well, it's a very saturated fat. It's a very solid fat. It's a very thick fat. It's going to be very hard to emulsify with soap. And so a lot of the programs out there, a lot of the doctors will say, "Well, why don't you try olive oil on your bread instead of butter? Or some other mono unsaturated fat." And it is true that if you're using a liquid oil, it will take less soap to process. So yeah, you'll have a lower cholesterol, be it mono or polyunsaturated fats. Polyunsaturated are a little more likely to oxidize, but all in all, it will lower your cholesterol. But this isn't the total answer, because if you had no fats in your diet whatsoever of a processed nature, of an added nature, and you added these things to it, your cholesterol wouldn't go down, it would go up. Because after all, it's going to take some soap to emulsify these fats. And so don't get the idea that these are medicines for lowering cholesterol. They're just better fats, at least in the arena of cholesterol. But there is something even better. Let's look at this gentleman again and talk about his high-fat diet. And as he's eating his high-fat diet, it comes to the stomach. The stomach checks it, tells the liver to put in some soap. And if you are using refined oils, like those bottled oils we just talked about, either monounsaturated or polyunsaturated, they tend to be totally free. They're not mixed with fiber as they might be in a nut. They're not encapsulated in a shell like they might be with a seed. They're just free, and so they go in the bloodstream really quickly, really early on in the small intestine, and they get absorbed more as cholesterol esters with this cholesterol soap than they would if they were absorbed farther down the small intestine. So there's a much higher increase of cholesterol for refined processed bottled oils. On the other hand, if we eat something that has fat in it, naturally occurring, like avocados, like nuts, like seeds, then there's a lot of stuff with the seeds and avocados and nuts other than just plain oil that has to be processed, digested before the body can get at the oils. And so the oils from those type of foods get digested and absorbed much further on down in the small intestine. When they get absorbed much further on down in the small intestine, they get absorbed more as phospholipids than as cholesterol esters, and the result is a lot lower cholesterol. How much lower? Well, let's compare here on a chart. I've got 3 columns that will come up here shortly. There's the total cholesterol up the x-axis. Across the y-axis we have cheese, vegetable oil. In this case, I believe their test oil was canola oil, and nuts at the end. And we're going to be in Canadian numbers here, but if you're eating cheese, which is a saturated fat product, a very solid fat at room temperature, then you can expect your cholesterol to be 250 in American numbers, 6.5 in Canadian numbers. If then, instead of eating cheese, you replace it calorie for calorie with mono or polyunsaturated vegetable oil, it'll drop down by 23 points American or 0.6 points Canadian. If instead of using the vegetable oil, you switch to nuts, naturally occurring fats in nuts, calorie for calorie, the same amount as you ate cheese or vegetable oil, you'll drop your cholesterol by 41 points American or 1.1 Canadian. And so this all illustrates that when you eat naturally occurring fats, your cholesterol can be much better. And that's the way it's really supposed to be. I mean, that's the way I believe God intended it. You know, God did talk about fats. In Leviticus, he says, "Speak unto the children of Israel." See, they just come out of Egypt. They didn't know anything. They were slaves. They just worked. They didn't get any education. And he said, "Speak unto the children of Israel." He wanted them to get instructed. He says, "Ye shall eat no manner of fat." And then he itemized what fats were going on in that day. Ox, that'd be cow or beef, a sheep, you know, lanolin or something like that, or goat. And but today, what would he say? Well, maybe margarine, butter, coconut oil. I mean, all these solid fats, or maybe vegenaise. You know, there's all these fats that people eat today, but you know, eating excess fat isn't very helpful. It sort of ruins society. It's part of the obesity pandemic that we are experiencing in modern society. All right, let's compare vegetarians to those who eat animal products. By animal products, we mean meat, eggs, dairy, and that kind of thing. All right, so if we look at this, people eating more animal products eat 50% more fat. Wow, from what I've told you, you know what that's going to do? It's going to raise your cholesterol, and sure enough, it'll raise your total cholesterol by 30%, and that HDL cholesterol probably won't be very high, and it will also raise your LDL cholesterol by 42%. So this is a bad thing. Much better to choose the vegetarian diet. And what will the vegetarian diet do to lower cholesterol? Well, if I switch to a vegetarian diet from a diet that isn't so healthy, then I can see a 28% drop in cholesterol. Well, what's responsible for that? Well, it's going to be the fiber. It's going to be things like sterols, plant sterols in these plants. Things that are especially helpful are good soy protein and almonds and things like that. Well, how significant is 28%? Well, it's about the numbers we can expect from a cholesterol pill. So really, compared to lifestyle interventions, statin drugs offer no cholesterol lowering advantage except for one. Oh, what would that one advantage be? Well, if you take the statin pill, you can keep going through the golden arches. But as some people have observed, those who go through the golden arches might be getting close to the pearly gates. Okay, well, let's look at fiber for a little bit. It's important to think about fiber and see what it'll do for you. If we look at fiber here and how it works in the system, remember we had the enterohepatic circulation going on, the eating the high-fat meal, the soap going in with the high-fat meal, the absorption back into the bloodstream, the clearance of that product by the liver, and so that's going around and around. If you eat a lot of high fiber foods, when they're in the small intestine, they'll absorb both cholesterol and fat and carry it out of the body through the large intestine. And it's pretty predictable how it works, and so keep that in mind. For example, for every 1 gram of like psyllium husk powder, which is a fiber source like Metamucil, it'll lower your cholesterol by 1 point, so American. So if you're trying to lower your cholesterol by 20 points, you just get 20 grams of Metamucil or psyllium husk powder and take that every day. And that sort of suggests taking a fiber chaser and sending it after the food you ate. And it works, but how much better just to eat the food that still has the fiber. A good example would be carrots. Everybody knows carrots has fiber, and you get your teeth into them. And not only does it have fiber, but it has antioxidants, which help to reduce cholesterol absorption in the bowel and improve the oxidized cholesterol, to reverse it, to reduce it. And so it's very helpful. Beans, high in fiber, good source of naturally occurring nutrients, especially things for your brain. Oh, like what? It's got precursors to neurotransmitters. That's a lot better than taking a statin drug and losing mental performance. And so the beans, a couple servings a day, will lower cholesterol and triglycerides by about 10%. Now, I sort of mentioned in passing earlier about plant sterols. What's a sterol? A sterol is like cholesterol. Cholesterol is something humans have, but the phytosterols or plant sterols are something plants have. The difference is this: plants are out there in the countryside. Plants are where you have lots of wind and rain and sun and clouds, and things are always changing, and so their sterols have to be very stable. They can't be easily oxidized. In fact, they need to be a part of the solution, stopping oxidation, mopping up oxidation, being free radical scavengers. And so they're very healthy. And here's what happens in the body. Back to our gentleman with the enterohepatic circulation, the soap cycle, and he eats something high in fat, but if it has lots of plant sterols in it, then when it gets into the small intestine and you get ready to absorb the cholesterol esters and the fats, the body's going to preferentially absorb the plant sterols in deference to the cholesterol. Cholesterol gets dumped and the plant sterols get taken on, and the cholesterol and the fat then go out the large intestine and out of the body. So 2 grams per day of phytosterols will lower your cholesterol by 0.36 millimoles in Canadian numbers. And so where do I find these plant sterols? I don't recommend you get them from a supplement. I recommend you get them from good food, and they're highest in nuts. Nuts have been studied and have been shown to have this particular benefit for lowering cholesterol. There's quite a number of them here. Brazil nuts, pecans, pine nuts, pistachios, cashews, macadamias, walnuts, almonds, and hazelnuts. Seeds also, like pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds, chia seeds, and beans such as soybeans and peas, and amaranth and other grains, and then lastly fruits and vegetables. But even some of them, they're a little lower than the phytosterols are a fat soluble thing. So the more fat the food would have naturally, they'd have more of them, and the less fat, the less of them. So the fruits still have some, and vegetables still have some. And notice it's cauliflower and broccoli. Those cleanse the liver, and it's probably partly why they're so helpful. All right. So, when they took a good diet that combined the effects of plant sterols, fiber, and good vegetable protein, they saw a 29% drop in LDL. And they saw near maximal reductions occurring within 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Why do you emphasize 2 weeks? Well, here's the thing. Your body's never not looking. If you cheat on your diet during those 2 weeks, it starts all over again the 2 weeks. And if you ever cheat on the diet, you got 2 weeks of high cholesterol. And so you have to be aware of that. But in 2 weeks, the cholesterol comes down. So if you're wondering how long it's going to take, if you're very diligent about your diet, you can see the difference in 2 weeks. Now, let's talk about other things that are beneficial. How about a regular schedule? What I mean by regular schedule is eating at the exact same time every day, breakfast and lunch, and if you eat a supper, and getting to bed at the same time and getting up at the same time every day. Your body runs on a clock. It's very specific. We call it the circadian rhythms. Nowadays they're calling it chrononutrition. And what that means is when you eat. And people who eat at the same time every day, so the body knows what's going on, so the body can anticipate food, so the body can be ready for cholesterol or sugar or whatever, then they digest much better, they have lower cholesterols, lower triglycerides, less abdominal obesity, and it helps improve their HDL. And so on that schedule, key is eating a good breakfast. People who eat a good breakfast have lower cholesterols. Why? Well, people who skip breakfast don't eat less food for the day, they just eat it later in the day. And the slower your digestion goes, as it will be slower in an evening meal, the more your body takes cholesterol out of the food. And so you want to eat a good breakfast and make sure you're eating good food for that breakfast. People tend to, skip breakfast and have troubles. And so cholesterol rises more profoundly after an evening meal. This is something to keep in mind. Also, anything that slows digestion, such as snacking. People who eat snacks, they're going to have a higher cholesterol. The whole mechanism of digestion will be stopped, the food will sit there, and the body is waiting for the digestion to continue, and all these, the body sits there and picks the cholesterol, the last little bit of cholesterol out of your food. And so you don't want to be eating between meals. It also affects your HDL negatively, and that isn't good. There's another thing, though, to consider, and that is caloric restriction. If you eat less food and exercise, how would I do that? How about skipping supper and taking a walk? Ah, perfect. Anyway, if you eat less food and exercise, you can see your LDL go down by 0.40 in Canadian numbers and your triglycerides by 0.78. That's pretty good. That's really good. And so how do I practice caloric restriction? Notice what the lady's eating. Do you think there's much calories in that? No. But do you think there's a lot of volume? Yes. Do you think you get filled up on that? Yeah. So you get filled up on this type of food and yet not overdo it on calories. So choosing foods that have fewer calories per unit volume. Now let's talk about this business of plaque in the heart. And because that's really what cholesterol is about, at least in most people's minds, and seriously it is. And so if you end up with a blockage in your coronary artery, you're in trouble. Here's a diagram of the heart. We have a picture of the main left coronary artery coming down the right-hand side of the heart there. If that one gets blocked, you're in trouble. That's the big one. That's the one that you block that one and you're done for. And notice next to it I have a picture of an angiogram there just to the right. And the blockage is quite extensive. We're talking maybe 99% blockage. That's a big blockage. And this person probably has angina on walking across the street too fast, thinking stressful thoughts. This person's going to have trouble. But how much can they be blocked and not feel if they have trouble? How much can they be blocked and have no symptoms? 70%. If you're blocked 70%, you'll probably never know it. They won't even know it on a heart EKG. They won't know it on a heart, a non-invasive cardiac monitoring. And so this is serious business. I mean, it means you have a lot of reserve. Incidentally, if we go to your brain, there's one artery that feeds the frontal lobes. That one artery is called the anterior cerebral artery. You don't want that one blocked, because your frontal lobes are what keep you thinking, help you distinguish right from wrong. It's also what distinguishes you from a monkey. It's a distinction that's, good to maintain. But if you get that artery blocked just 20%, not 70%, just 20%, we can begin to detect changes on your mental status exam. Wow. Well, what do I do if I'm all blocked up with this oxidized cholesterol and cholesterol plaque and cholesterol sludge and atherosclerosis in my blood vessels? Well, Caldwell Esselstyn of the Cleveland Clinic has shown on angiography that blockages in coronary arteries can be changed, can be reversed, can be opened up simply by changing the diet. And there's a before picture there on the left of a coronary artery that's nearly completely blocked, and on the right it's open, wide open. Amazing. What kind of diet are we talking? The optimal diet consists of grains, legumes, that's beans, vegetables, and fruit, with less than 10 to 15% of its calories coming from fat. Essentially, if you're eating what we have pictured there, fresh fruits and vegetables, you're in that range. And so he's not talking about adding any extra fats. In fact, he's even careful on naturally occurring fats such as nuts and so forth. Interesting guy. But he achieved the results, and so we got to hand it to him. And he goes on to say that this diet minimizes the likelihood of stroke, obesity, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, and cancers of the breast, prostate, colon, rectum, uterus, and ovary. Wow, he's pretty proud of that diet. I mean, that's quite a promise. I mean, did Medicare ever make a promise like that? I mean, it's nice to have insurance if you're going to fall apart, but why not try the diet and have your own insurance? Better not to fall apart, right? Now, in your body, if you get dehydrated, your blood volume goes down. And if your blood volume goes down, your perceived or your cholesterol is going to go up by concentration. On the other hand, drinking more water can reverse that, can actually lower your percentage concentration of cholesterol in your bloodstream. In other words, to be dehydrated is to be in trouble on your cholesterol. There's something else that's helpful, and that we said that your cholesterol goes to your skin. You can help deal with that cholesterol in your skin by subjecting it to sunlight and fresh air. When you get sunlight, it changes those cholesterol molecules in your skin into pre-vitamin D, and then later it gets changed completely into vitamin D by other processes in your body. And so you just took something that was of questionable value and made it into something that's considered to be of very high value. Sunlight and exercise. So I say gardeners get more sun and fresh air. Gardening is a very good activity, very healthy, very beneficial. I mean, any kind of exercise can have its benefits. You can lower your total cholesterol and triglycerides and raise your HDL. People who get out there and exercise for 30 minutes 3 times a week can see their triglycerides drop by 0.5 in Canadian numbers, and their HDL come up by 0.25. And so there's benefits, lots of benefits. Here's a fascinating study coming up. You want to boost your HDL? Get together with friends and laugh. That's by 23%, up goes your HDL. So laugh away those problems. That's interesting. Another interesting connection is people who attend religious services regularly, who are considered religious people, at least spiritual, end up with better numbers on their cholesterol, lower total, lower triglycerides, lower LDL, and better HDL. Another thing that's very beneficial for folks is if they get involved in what we call volunteering, helping others. When you help others, you help yourself. In one study, mortality was significantly reduced for individuals who provided support to friends, relatives, neighbors, and their spouse. On the other hand, just receiving support really didn't show up in the studies as making any impact on the statistics. But that said, it is more blessed to give than to receive, isn't it? You see, the pleasure of doing good to others imparts a glow to the feelings, which flashes through the nerves, quickens the circulation of blood, and induces mental and physical health. That's what you want. Now, back to our cholesterol picture. Let's go to our last section that we promised you, and that's the mind-body connection. Mind-body connection. Is there really a connection between what I think and what my cholesterol does? Well, if you get depressed, your cholesterol levels go up, your digestion slows down, that could be a reason why this is happening, and you end up with all kinds of psychological changes. On the other hand, taking a diet that naturally gets you over your depression can also help you lower your cholesterol. It goes both ways. I mean, it's an interesting interchange there. So which came first, the chicken or the egg? I mean, your diet, if it's causing you a high cholesterol, is probably depressing you. And so you want to keep your cholesterol low and healthy and non-oxidized. You'll have less depression, less bipolar, less Alzheimer's, less Parkinson's, better memory, clearer thinking. It's all about a good mental outlook. And most people's mental outlook is first challenged by psychological stress. And stress raises cholesterol. How does stress raise cholesterol? Well, stress raises cortisol. Cortisol makes your blood sugar go up. Blood sugar going up makes your insulin go up. And high insulin raises your cholesterol. So it's a chain reaction with a lot of elements or participants in the chain that aren't real good. And so, yeah, stress. I've had people come to me. One lady came to me. She says, Dr. Clark, I want to talk to you about my cholesterol. It was at a series of meetings done by many different people. And I said, wow, okay, let's talk over lunch. We came to lunch and I said, well, you've been here at the conference now for a few days. How have you liked it? Good. Did you come to any of my meetings? Well, no, I didn't come because I saw this other gentleman who was talking on stress, and I said, I want to go to that one. She went to the stress meeting, and she says, when I was doing well till he asked us to take out a piece of paper, and he asked us to write about our most troubled relationship. She said, I took out the paper, I picked up my pen, I thought about my ex-husband, and all I could do is cry. Stress raises cholesterol. I says, we've got a solution here. And once she got the stress under control, the cholesterol came down. Well, let's combine the whole thought of stress management and diet. Let's do it in the Hawaiian diet. The Hawaiian diet is based on traditional foods, pictured here, for example, high in complex carbohydrate, low in fat, and moderate in protein. That diet has been shown in Canadian numbers to be able to lower your cholesterol by 1.29 millimoles per liter. That's quite significant. That's real good. So, here's your prescription. Fly to Hawaii, take a vacation, have fun, and try some of their food. Tell them the doctor sent you. All right, what have we been talking about here anyway? Isn't it the Bible diet, the original diet? The diet from Eden with all the fresh fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, beans, and so forth. Yes, the original diet, the Bible diet, and also the diet of the future, the diet of heaven. Revelation 22 speaks of a tree that has different fruits on it every month of the year. I mean, that's quite a tree. Well, let's get back to our why me gentleman with a heart attack at a cholesterol of 3.6 Canadian or 140 American. Why did he have a heart attack? Well, those numbers are just quantitative. In other words, they tell me how much. It's like your car. If you drive in your car and you look down at the dash and you look for your oil pressure, if the oil pressure is like 60, that's good, but does having an oil pressure of 60 in your car tell you anything about what the oil looks like in the car, whether it needs changed or not, whether it's turning black or not? No, it just tells me the pressure of it. Same is true of cholesterol numbers here. Maybe he did have a 3.6 or a 140. But it tells me nothing about whether it's oxidized or not. In order to find out if your car's oil's bad, you got to lift the hood and pull the stick out and look at it, and if it's brown, you know you're in trouble. Well, this gentleman, I followed him around a bit. I watched what he ate. You're seeing him eating it right here. He was eating cheese pizza. He was eating ice cream. And so if we checked his cholesterol with the stick, it would be brown. I mean, I'm just using that figuratively as comparison with the car, but it would be in poor shape. It would be oxidized. And that's why he would have a heart attack. Remember we said if you had two people with the same cholesterol level and one was eating more fresh fruits and vegetables, they would be the one that would not have the heart attack? Well, this gentleman wasn't eating his fresh fruits and vegetables. He was eating all this junk food that would cause him to have oxidized cholesterol, and eventually died of a heart attack with a low cholesterol. In summary, you need some good, healthy, may I insert unoxidized cholesterol. Too much cholesterol hurts your heart, brain, and eyes. Oxidized cholesterol creates disease through your entire body, everywhere there's a blood vessel. And it's stress that raises and oxidizes your cholesterol. Good lifestyle, dietary, and psychological habits make for good cholesterol. So go low fat. Avoid the soap producers, cooking oils, animal fats, margarines, or butter. Get more fresh fruits and vegetables, and nuts and seeds, whole grains and beans, in preference to refined foods, oxidized foods, and animal foods. Keep a regular schedule, including a good breakfast and even skipping the third meal. Be more physically active. Drink more water. Turn your stress over to somebody who can handle it. You know, that's probably the best one on the list right there. Well, if you want to study this more, you can go to our website, which is Northern Lights Health Education. You can look up our presentation handouts. You can download a free PDF of that handout, or a whole book of all our PDFs in one, and you can study it. Well, this has been another episode of Blueprint for Health and Healing, Reversing Disease from its Foundation. Our topic has been the blessing of heart-healthy cholesterol.